Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It's the weekend, so it's another episode of Cornerbox Classics. Got the tea ready, but before we get into it, in the room tour, that was when it really clicked for me that in our old house, I had the room wasn't as big, and so there was a place in the basement for all of the Marvel Universe stuff, and then there was a spare bedroom in the first floor. That is where I organized all of the X-Men stuff in the read order, because that's when I started that I'm gonna read everything story wise. And so, and what I mean by that is, like, right now with the Cornerbox Classics thing, I'm doing a chronological as they came out. But when I did the initial X-Men read of everything, it was like a perfect example is Days of Future Past, Uncanny X-Men number 100 and 142. There was a mini series, like a 3-issue mini series that came out in like the late 90s, early 2000s. That was kind of like a prequel to that. And so when I did that X-Men read, I put those 3 issues in front of Uncanny X-Men, so it flowed how it would have, like, if it was one big movie or whatever. It was a lot. Anyways, so during that, I was so engrossed in the X-Men, like art and prints and things that I was picking up at cons, things that pals were making for me, stuff like that, was all pretty much X-Men themed. I mean, that was what got me into comics. That was what, it's my jam. There's people out there who are Spider-Man guys. I love Spider-Man, but my heart belongs to the X-Men and then the Marvel Universe as a whole. So as I was doing the room tour, I had started the Cornerbox Classic thing, reading everything from 1961 to the present that I have in my collection. And I was like, dang, I'm like, if you walk through here, it's, you can see that there's figures and comics, obviously, from the greater Marvel Universe and not just the X-Men side. I was like, but everything art-wise is 100% X-Men. I even referenced this in the video. So I was like, dang. So I wound up rearranging some stuff just so the room flowed better as far as I was concerned. Like, now there is like a dedicated Avengers section that has, volume 1 through whatever volume that they're at now. Moved the Fantastic Four stuff into a bigger spot in my office, changed that around, put some new shelves in there. I'm sure I will do another room tour at some point, since there haven't been huge significant, there's been not really a ton of huge significant changes on this side. I rearranged some stuff so I could make room for other stuff. Anyways, this is all to say that I was like, man, I need to get some art, and my buddy Daniel White, who's Birds and Boxes on Instagram, and I'll link his Instagram and his Etsy shop in the description. Sure, that works. But he did a lot of the Cornerbox pieces that I showed off. He did a lot. He did all of them. I love his art. And so I'm not good. I am not one to I can be like, this isn't really art that speaks to me or whatever, but I don't consider myself a critic of anything, nor would I want to be. Even when I title review, it's I'm not really, I don't know. I like talking about what I like. I'm not necessarily here to be like, this is why I think from an expert, you get what I'm saying. Anyways, the best compliment I can possibly give Daniel's art is that when I look at it, it makes me want to take every single action figure down off the walls and play with them. And for me, there's no higher compliment. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, are you still you still do cornerboxes? Because he, part of even the Cornerbox Classic thing, we all get it. We all grew up in a time period where the cornerbox was a big deal. And so I was like, you still doing that art, the Cornerbox art pieces? And he was like, not really, but I haven't in a while. But for you, I absolutely would. What are you thinking? And so I tossed out a couple ideas, and I got them in the mail yesterday. So it felt appropriate to show them off before I hang them on the walls on a Cornerbox Classics episode. So first up, we'll go through so on the Avengers side, I have a Beast Cornerbox Classic that he did that I loved. And I was like, well, that's twofold because it mixes, like Beast was an Avenger, but an X-Man. So that one can stay. But I needed another piece in there. And I was like, well, one of my favorite all-time Avengers is Vision. And so he did this fantastic Vision phasing through the corner box so that it's going to hang above my Avengers books, and I think that's great. The colors, like, it's just, dude, does that not make you want to like bust out a Vision figure and play with it? It does for me. So then the section that I'm looking at when I'm doing the videos is like Cap and Daredevil and Iron Man. And so on there, I was like, oh, I would really like an Iron Man. And so he knocked this Iron Man out of the park. Look at how fantastic that is. So that makes me want to bust out Iron Man action figures, which Hank is obsessed with right now. And I tracked down some of the like 90s figures from the cartoon that have like the removable armor, and he's been loving those. His mother, not so much, because it's literally like he pulls off all of the armor and then he kind of hands it to us like, hey, help me put this back together. So she's probably put Iron Man armor on a few figures 3,000 times in the past couple of weeks. And then in the Fantastic Four section, I was like, I need a thing. I need a classic Marvel 2-in-1 Thing solo series. Before Joe Quesada put in the smoking ban in comics, cigar chomping, blue-eyed idol of millions, Benjamin J. Grimm Thing. And I think that turned out fantastic. And I was like, he's like, I couldn't sing the praises enough. I think these are all fantastic. And he is definitely down for doing more of these. If anyone was interested, I will, like I said, link to his stuff there, and you can reach out to him. He does great work. There are literally probably 15 of his pieces in this room because I love them so much. So there's that. So anyways, thought that was cool. I'm excited to hang them up, but before I hung them up, I wanted to like be able to give you an up close look at it. So now we'll get into it. So, week of June 22nd, 1982. June was a friggin' big month, man. I think there's a 5th week in 82 in June, and that's why it's as big as it was. So first up, Daredevil number 187, Overkill, released June 22nd, 1982. Written by Frank Miller. I have that written down that he did pencils, but he did not. It was Klaus Jensen, who also did the inks and the colors and the letters by Joseph Rosen, with a cover by Miller and Jansen. I mean, like, come on. There's, again, I say this every time with Daredevil. I am not breaking any type of new ground by talking about Miller and Jansen's Daredevil, but holy smokes, it's one of the top. Like, I can't believe that right now we're about, like, while Miller and Jansen's Daredevil is going on, you've got Byrne crushing it on Fantastic Four, Roger Stern on Amazing Spider-Man, Claremont on Uncanny X-Men, and I think we're super close to getting Paul Smith on pencils, which is just a great, brief but wonderful run of X. There's just a ton of really great stuff that's coming out now. I can't even imagine. Like, I get excited biking up to the comic book store now, and I know that it's like 50-50 on a good week of what I'm picking up, of like what's going to be stuff that like really sticks with me. and what's not. And this, I'm just like, man, it is all killer, no filler. Anyways, Daredevil's powers are on the fritz, you know? He's starting to get, like, really hammered with his... man, look at that. Look at Daredevil falling there in that cityscape or whatever. That looks so good. Way to go, Jansen. So Matt's powers are acting up, and then cuts to this great, like, I love the colors in this fight scene between the Widow and these hand ninjas as she's going after them to they're taking somebody from the morgue, and she is there to take down the hand ninjas, and she is communicating with Nick Fury, and this, I think, is the first time that she sees their bodies dissolved, because she was under the impression that she would be able to take one of them for interrogation. But one of them, through these little, like, I don't know, like maybe caltraps, the things like balls with little spikes on them, throws them down, and she winds up stepping on a couple of them, so the rest of the hand guys go away. And then Matt is looking for Stick because he realizes that Stick could help him since he helped him before with his powers. So he's, you know, going through the underground, you know, the bar scene and trying to find Stick. And his powers start overreacting there. So the guys go to beat him up, and he eventually gets away from that. Then some hand guys go after Stick outside of Josie's. And, you know, Stick makes quick work of them. And it's more of Matt just basically trying to get to Stick without succumbing to the fact that his powers are throwing off his radar sense. And so he's not able to see. There's this great scene where, like, Daredevil is basically like, some goons see him trying to make it across the street in this. And, he can't do it because, like, people, like, he tries to make it across the light before it turns. When he doesn't, everybody starts honking their horns at him, and he's so out of sorts that people think, like, oh, that's some kind of fake Daredevil. And some guys are going after him here, and this guy in this cab is like, come on, just go around him. Like, I got places to be. And so I love this because the cabbie gets out and winds up clubbing one of the guys from the bar that followed Daredevil out with a crowbar, or you know, the thing to get the lug nuts off the car. And then, you know, that guy's like giving Daredevil and him the business about, like, get back in the cab, and then that dude just, like, picks him up and throws him out of the cab. It was very the scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which I love, when Steve Martin gets picked up by the guy at the airport. We all know the scene. So then cuts to Nick Fury talking to a doc who explains that those spikes that Natasha was hit with gave her a, like, very... it attacked her cellular structure, giving her what I can only classify as an advanced accelerated form of cancer. So that's a huge bum out. So he's like, I don't give her more than a week. And so he's like, you want me to tell her? And Nick's like, no, I'll do it. And there's just some great artwork there by Klaus Jensen as Nick goes in to tell her. So that's a pretty big deal. Murdoch gets dropped off by the cabbie at Josie's, going to look for Stick. His powers once again overreact. So once again, these goons in the bar are like, hey, he's down for the count. Let's take him out. And of course, as per usual in Josie's, he gets tossed out of the window. So then Stick is, like, meeting with a group of ninja folks that he knows, trying to get them to pull Matt in when Daredevil shows up and falls down, and he's basically asking Stick to help him. And then we cut to the hand all sacrificing themselves, slitting their wrist and pouring their blood into the body that they stole, which was Karigi, he was the hand's greatest warrior. And so they pour their blood into him, they all dissolve, and then Karigi stands up and bows. And now Matt, with his unhinged senses, is also going to have to face a, like, zombie hand ninja. Zombie hand ninja. I'm all about it. That sounds awesome. Up next, I would have pedaled up there and picked up Dazzler number 20 because it's one of my favorite series. Out of the Past, released June 22nd, 1982. Out of the Past is also the name of a great noir movie. Writer Danny Fingeroth, pencils by the great Frank Springer, inks by Vince Colletta, letters by Janice Chang, colors by Don Warfield, and this cover by John Romita Jr. with inks by his dad, John Romita. I met John Romita Jr. at New York Comic Con like 15, 16, 17 years ago. And he was with his dad. And Mrs. Romita was there. And so like the kid next to me that was getting his book signed brought Kick-Ass. And it was really funny because his mom asked to like see the book, and she was like flipping through it, and it was just hilarious because the way she was like, "Oh, Johnny, this is so good," and it just made me laugh because she was legitimately like, she sounded like a mom that was gonna like tack up pictures from Kick-Ass on the refrigerator. It was pretty interesting. All right, so Dazzler. Last issue, her friend who was taking the music lessons wound up stumbling into a room, and we didn't know what she saw because that was the cliffhanger of it. Very, this feels probably the most soap opera-esque out of any comic that I'm reading right now, and that is not a knock. I loved me some Days of Our Lives when I was a kid. I had pneumonia one summer, and and absolutely got into it with my mom and grandmother. Yeah, her dad, the judge, has totally like kind of like gone into his own mind and is stressing out about his relationship with Dazzler and his ex, her mother. So Warren is there because in Dazzler, Warren is super creepy and has taken it upon himself to find Allison's mother because he thinks that's how he's gonna be able to like knock Ken out of the running for dudes that are interested in Allison. And not great. I'm looking forward to Warren getting out of here and joining the Defenders so that he can be written a little bit more like Warren and not an absolute creep. So Allie is walking through Central Park. She gets mugged. The dude picks the wrong lady. He tries to steal the brooch off of her, and she, blasts. Thank God she has a Walkman with her. Clicks that on and blasts him with some light powers. And in doing this, the brooch opens up and she realizes that there is a picture of Allison's father and some other dude. And she's like, who is this guy? And then we cut to Allison's friend, Vanessa, who has taken the singing lessons, and she stumbles upon a shrine to Dazzler. And so the vocal coach lady comes in, starts snapping on her, and she's like, "Oh, those are my kids. That's my daughter. She's a big Allison. She's a big Dazzler fan." So then we cut to the band. One of the members of the band had a child, so everyone is hanging out, oohing and on over the baby. Allison shows up. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose as the door gets rattled open from some music outside. And we are hit with two cats named Dr. Sax and Johnny Guitar, which is awesome. And so then we get the backstory of Dr. Sax and Johnny Guitar, where they were in a band with these other dudes, but wound up like they were criminals. And so like if they didn't feel like they got a good enough cut of the cash from, bar sale or drink sales at the bar or ticket sales from the club, they would just crack open the safe after playing the gig. And Beaver and the rest of Allison's band, who was in the band with Dr. Sax and Johnny Guitar, didn't particularly appreciate that. So They got into a fisticuffs, all that type of stuff. Great flashback to this. Plus, it's just, I don't know, it's just hilarious. Like, Dr. Sax and Johnny Guitar. I'm all about it. So, I mean, these guys are full-on creeps. Like, you know, they've clearly been enhanced with powers and are able to use them through their instruments. I don't know. Comics, man. This is where we're at. And so Johnny Guitar goes in and makes a move on the dude's wife who just had the baby, like an absolute creep. And so everybody starts to fight everybody in this. It is a full, like, band versus former band. This is good stuff. Band versus former band stuff. Allison's like in the other room, like, oh no, I don't want to. She made a vow after she like blasted that mugger because he was. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. The mugger was like a 15-year-old kid, and so she felt. But it's like, dude, he's mugging you. Who cares? Anyways, Allison's all like, oh, I'm never gonna use my powers again. And so now her band's getting the crap kicked out of them by Dr. Sax and Johnny Guitar, and she won't do anything because she vowed to not use her powers 8 pages earlier. Then we cut back to Vanessa talking to the vocal coach lady. And she's like, she's talking about how she has another younger daughter, and that's the one who's into Dazzler. Then it cuts to Warren flying through the city. He's looking for Allison, so he goes and sees Harry Osgood. Then he goes and sees Ken. He just taps on his window, which would just piss. If I was like Allison's boyfriend, and here's the other guy who, you know, I'd be pretty pissed off about that. If he's just rapping on my window looking for my gal. So then cuts back to everybody being tied up by Dr. Sax and Johnny Guitar, and then you get the through the leg shot of Allison showing up. And this is the part that bummed me out. Johnny Guitar is actually like torturing that kid, and I think like a little behind the scenes on me. Until I had a kid, not the biggest fan of kids, but now that I have one, it's opened up. I care so much more about every other kid. Not like I was a jerk to kids, but I was just like not like, you know, I was an all right uncle. I was a so-so uncle, I guess. I don't know. But now I'm like, leave that baby alone. So these morons do not realize that like using their instruments to attack Allison Player is a poor idea. So she winds up blasting them with her powers. She finally gives in, uses her powers. And that's when the band pieces together that like, oh, we always thought that was like a light show with the concerts. We didn't realize that you're a mutant. And so everybody seemed cool with it. And that is when we cut back to Vanessa, and the older woman announces that she is, and she's like, I don't know why I told you that thing about my kid being a Dazzler fan. I'm Dazzler's mom. Dun, dun, dun. So that's where we leave Dazzler at issue 20. Up next, Incredible Hulk, annual number 11, The Day the Earth Turned Green, released June 22nd, 1982, written by Bill Mantlo, pencils by Rich Buckler, inks by Joe Sinnott, letters by James Novak, and colors by Bob Sharon. The backup story in this is called Unis Unchained, and it is written by Mary Jo Duffy, with pencils by Frank Miller, inks by Steve Mitchell, letters by James Novak, colors by Bob Sharon. It is no great shakes. It is just Dr. Samson fighting off against Unis the Untouchable. I appreciate it because Unis is a mutant that I am fond of. But the thing that's interesting about this is that is Frank Miller's first pencil work for Marvel Comics and Mary Jo Duffy's first written work for Marvel Comics. So that is cool. And real quick, for those who watched the last Cornerbox Classics, I did in fact pick up the Incredible Hulk complete series. I watched the pilot, and you guys were not kidding. Like when I said I was like, is it fun? I didn't mean like I wanted the Incredible Hulk like tiptoeing through the tulips or anything, or like, you know, going on a roller coaster and eating cotton candy. I just meant more like, is it like I can turn it on and is Hulk gonna like go to some town that's being like roughed up by mobsters or something, and is he gonna, is in the last 10 minutes is Ferrigno gonna Hulk out and give him the business? And man, you guys were like, well, it's pretty heavy and there's a lot of like emotional, and I was not prepared. That first episode, dude's wife died. Then you get the doctor, Susie's like, I don't remember the actress's name, but she looked really great in that pilot episode, and then she dies, and I was like, you guys weren't kidding. This is the sad alone man music. This is a bum out, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and it was only like $19, so I mean, if I watch an episode here or there, that's where we're at. So this issue of the Hulk takes place. This is one of those, there's actually a couple things in here this week that really, one of the things that kind of drives me batty with current continuity is that stuff seems sort of all over the place. And a lot of this started to really hit home for me when I did the big X-Men, like put everything kind of in story order, because the way that I did, I was able to do that retroactively, therefore able to make sense of the continuity of things. And so doing this the way that I'm doing it, where stuff comes out weekly, I am noticing that some of the continuity issues that I have with modern books, editorial wise and things like that, actually were still very prevalent in the 80s. It was a tighter ship back then for sure. But there are at least 2 examples here of me being like, I'm going to have to put this not in release. Like, this isn't going to go behind Incredible Hulk 275. I'm actually going to have to find a spot earlier to put it through there, because Hulk is not, like right now in current continuity with Hulk, he's got Banner's mind and he's intelligent, and that is not the case. And they make a note of this. But the other thing that threw me off is the Avengers team. So is not the current Avengers team. It's a previous version of the Avengers team that we run into. So Hulk is basically being like experimented on because the leader and this woman named Ricky are trying to find a cure for the Hulk. And the Hulk winds up getting, blasting out of there and falling. But the leader has what he wants out of him. And so there is this panel here where Ricky goes to take a drink and leader is like side-eyeing her. And you're like, immediately I was like, oh, and he even says, yeah. She's like, oh, this is water. Because he just like cheers in her. And she's like, wait, this isn't like champagne or anything. This is water. And he's like, yes, it is. Drink up. And I was like, okay, there's something in the water. And so sure enough, the next panel is the news where people are getting the green flu. So clearly the leader took something from the Hulk, put it in the water, and now people are coming up green and gamma irradiated, and that is the general consensus here. And it's, you get Doctor Strange and Thor showing up, you get Peter Parker showing up. He starts fighting the Hulk, which is just, dumb, but also fun. Then, in what sort of confused me, there were a couple like flashback scenes that should have been, I think, done differently, because it's like the Hulk is like looking at it, and I get it now. Like, as I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is happening in his mind. Banner kind of did something that made Hulk remember, like, you've got to think about the water. You've got to think about the water. Cuts to our Avengers team, which is not our current Avengers team. And so I was like, this is a mess. I have to figure out where this fits continuity-wise, because that's how I prefer to organize my books, is not necessarily in release order. It is more like, if I were to read all of this, how is it going to flow with the least disruption? It's my thing, but it is what it is. So everyone is getting the green flu as Hulk is trying to figure out this. And he is having flashbacks where he is sort of kind of piecing it together. And then the poor woman turns into a little leader, and he's like, oh yeah, I was trying to make you my bride. Like, this is all that's happening here. And As far as Hulk stories go, like, it was fun. It was fun to get the leader. You get a lot of the other Marvel heroes in here, so there's a lot of great stuff with that. And, obviously it winds up with the day being saved and everyone is turned back to normal. Not everyone is green and leader-like. And then, like I said, good little, like, 4 or 5 page Mary Jo Duffy, Frank Miller, backup story with Unis the Untouchable. I always like seeing that character. So there you have it. I recently finished the Astonishing Tales portion of the Ka-Zar, like, Doctor Doom, where it was like split and then it becomes Doctor Doom's story. There was some stuff in there that I really liked. I didn't realize that Bobby Morse was first introduced in those Astonishing Tales issues, not as Mockingbird, but just as Bobby Morse. Thought that was interesting. So I finished those, and in the process of that, I picked up an entire run of Ka-Zar the Savage. This is Ka-Zar the Savage number 19. I'll Take Manhattan, released June 22nd, 1982. Written by Bruce Elliott Jones, pencils by Brett Anderson, inks by Armando Gil, letters by Janice Chang, colors by Don Warfield, and a cover by the fantastic Brett Anderson. Not going to get too far into the weeds on this because I'm doing this sort of like how I did Micronauts, where I'm gonna, on the days when I'm not reading new books and not reading the Cornerbox Classic stuff, I'm gonna try to get through the first half of this Ka-Zar series so that I can catch up. Brent Anderson's pencils are fantastic in this. Clearly, Ka-Zar in this issue has been shot in the head and has some damage going on, and so they are... It's also a little bit, like, weird because I have not yet been... I mean, I know who Shauna is, but I have not yet been introduced to her because she is not in the Astonishing Tales issues because he hasn't met her yet. And there's some other secondary characters in this that, it was a really good issue, but, like, I don't really want to get too far into it because... I don't have the 18 issues of backstory yet because I just sort of threw this into... This is a... Ka-Zar eventually winds up getting away from the group while they're in New York. And he's kind of like, he's obviously suffered an injury. So they are trying to find him. The only one who can find him is Zabu. And some cops track him because it's a friggin' saber-toothed tiger in New York. Ka-Zar stumbles upon a gang attacking an elderly couple in the subway, so he winds up making quick work of them. Shauna goes to the cops, but they aren't exactly, like, falling all over themselves. They think she's a nut because she's, dressed in her cheetah outfit or whatever. And Ka-Zar, in the distance, as he's walking through the city, sees a fire, thinks it's a campfire, heads towards it, and it's this pretty great page by Brent Anderson. I really love Brent Anderson's work. I think he's super underrated, but I loved all of his stuff that he did with the X-Men, so I'm pretty happy anytime that I, like, stumble upon his work. So they're trying to get this girl off the roof of this building that's on fire. Firefighters can't do it, but Ka-Zar winds up doing it and swinging through the city, and then you cut to Ramona, and clearly Brent Anderson dug drawing her. And so she winds up seeing, like, a photo in the paper about Ka-Zar being there, or, like, in the city. And then she winds up, like, going to a prison, and all of a sudden she starts, like, she is able to drug pretty much everyone to make her way to a cell. And she slips a photo of Ka-Zar to the inmate, and it is revealed to be Kraven the Hunter, which I was like, again, having not read the first 18 issues of the series and immediately jumping into issue 19, which is how it was when we were kids, man. I didn't start at X-Men #1, so this is fine for me, but I was like, holy smokes, that's a cliffhanger. Like, that's awesome. I'm super jazzed for issue number 12. I'm going to have to, like, forget spending Easter with the family tomorrow. I'm going to read 18 issues of Ka-Zar the Savage so I can be caught up, because Ka-Zar versus Kraven the Hunter, that's a comic book I want to read. Then in the back, there's some Tales of Zabu. And so clearly this is like a backup story about Zabu. And clearly this is not the first part of it. There are probably parts in the other 18 issues, and it was good, you know. It's a Zabu tale. I mean, I don't know if the narration... I'm like, are the narration boxes Zabu? But then there was an ad for Wolverine #2, and I thought that was cool. And this wraparound cover by Brent Anderson. So yeah, happy that I picked up Ka-Zar the Savage. Happy that I added that. I'm a big Savage Land fan. It's weird because in Astonishing Tales, he winds up in New York for a good chunk of it, and dropping into issue number 19, he was in New York. There's this old 80s movie that I used to watch all the time, and I had like completely forgotten about it. But then, like chatting with some friends a while back about like weird 80s movies that we would watch relentlessly as kids. My number one being Delta Force. This movie was called Wild Thing, and it was like a dude whose parents were killed. They were like hippies, and parents were killed by cops. And he called them the Blue Coat. I just recently watched it like a few months ago for the first time since I was like very little in the 80s. And, and you know, I mean, it holds up as well as you would imagine, but it was still like a nice little nostalgia trip. But when I was reading Astonishing Tales, and Ka-Zar was in New York, he referred to the cops as Blue Coats. And I was like, was that a thing? Were there a lot of jungle people running around in the 80s calling cops Blue Coats? I don't know. So, next, I got one ear on the situation upstairs. I believe my wife is currently trying to make deviled eggs for Easter tomorrow. And I believe Henry is driving her nuts, so I got to wrap this up. All right. Marvel 2-in-1 number 92, The Evil Returning, June 22nd, 1982, written by Tom DeFalco, pencils by the great Ron Wilson, letters by Joseph Rosen, colors by Don Warfield, and a cover by Ron Wilson and Chick Stone. So last issue of Marvel 2-in-1, Thing was in Egypt, I think, taking on the Sphinx. And so we open up with him making his way to the airport and trying to get a ticket, and the ticket guy like isn't even paying attention to him, and Thing only has a credit. He only has a credit card. He has no ID, and so when the guy's like, "Well, I'm not going to be able to give you a ticket without an ID," like he looks up at that moment. It's a pretty funny moment where he realizes like, "Oh, it's the Thing." So he makes his way through the airport. There's some gags there, like him trying to get through the metal detector and stuff like that. As he's boarding the plane on the runway, some terrorists show up, and he makes quick work of them, and flight is off. Then it cuts to New York. Good little city skyline shot there. And a woman is in distress in an alley, being attacked by some youths, and she winds up making quick work of them. Cuts to the Baxter building, where Mr. Fantastic is doing his usual when he's not saving the day. He's working on some gadgets. Alicia comes in, and she starts asking him about, like, hey, like, I haven't seen you doing any work to, like, fix Ben. Like, you in Fantastic Four number 238, you turned him into a mush monster, and then he got changed back in the last issue, but you just sort of... And Reed's like, how do I tell her that, like, Ben thinks that she won't love him as Ben and not the Thing? But thankfully, he's saved by the bell because the emergency buzzer comes off. And then we cut to the airport where a taxi is waiting for Ben. But then Johnny shows up in one of the Pogo planes or Fantastic Car. And so he comes back. Alicia's thrilled to see Ben, and then it cuts to Jocasta showing up. And so she explains that the Avengers recently, like, she's been living on the street because the Avengers did their new Avengers thing that they do. You know, we gotta pick a new team, and she wasn't even thought, like, she was like, I wasn't even thought of. Like, I was just, you know, they've never accepted me. A lot of, like, I'm not human, woe is me, I'm made from their enemy, etc., etc. So she's lamenting that, and the Fantastic Four are like, well, you're welcome here. Like, you can stay here. Like, just be a part of this. Reed reaches out to Captain America via like the Avengers, and it was weird because it sort of was written, I don't know, like when Reed calls, his like the first thing he says when Cap like answers the screen or whatever is like, Captain America, I didn't expect the living legend of World War II to answer my call to Avengers Mansion. And it's like it just seemed weird. Like, I was like, have these two have I've read everything. I'm pretty sure that they've met. It just seemed weird. I don't know. That just seemed weird. So cut to Jocasta sleeping. Okay, I guess. And she is being haunted by Ultron, and Ultron is a statue when we last saw him. So he is clearly reaching out to Jocasta in some type of way. So then Ben goes to like an insurance. He goes to an insurance company because of the Pogo plane being destroyed in the battle with the Sphinx. And his insurance guy happens to be none other than Aaron Stack, the Machine Man. So then Alicia has a little art gallery going on. Jocasta is mistaken for an art piece, gets pissed off about this. And then all of a sudden she has some type of like, oh, I'm being like, not necessarily attacked, but just she all of a sudden just goes kind of like haywire, escapes. Alicia tries to call, doesn't get an answer. Ben leaves. Machine Man follows because he gets the call from Alicia. And then she is basically drawn to where the Ultron statue is, and she unleashes Ultron. And so then it is Machine Man versus Ultron. And then Thing shows up, and he starts taking on Ultron, but then this hilarity happens where Ultron gives him the old hypno eyes, and then Ben gets the old hypno eyes, and then all of a sudden our cliffhanger is that the Thing is going after Machine Man. And so that's where we leave Marvel 2-in-1. So, you know, all of these have been a blast so far. The last book that I would have picked up when I pedaled up to the shop on June 22nd, 1982, if I'd been able to. Spider-Woman number 46, Yakuza. Written by Chris Claremont with art, inks, and colors by Steve Laiola. Letters by Tom Orzechowski, and a cover by Steve Laiola. I think this might be where I drop off of Spider-Woman. I think I might have 2 or 3 issues after this. I think the series only goes for 4 more issues. But this is where Claremont and Laiola leave, and that might be where I leave too. This sort of wraps up their story, where Spider-Woman and what's this, Dave, I think is his name. See, I don't even remember who this fella's name is, and he's been in like, yes, it's David. They get attacked as they're having a beach day. Like, some goons sneak up on them underwater, and they get taken. And, well, they almost get taken. There's a hole. She's getting shot at underwater, and then all of a sudden, the last goon that's still standing gets shot in the back by Lieutenant Sabrina Morel, who we know works with the Yakuza. But it turns out that Jessica was shot, grazed. This is such a Claremontism, where people get grazed with bullets all the time. And so she wakes up kind of in the Yakuza's headquarters with Lieutenant Sabrina Morel. And Ayasu Omura, who is like the head of this gang, and they're basically trying to explain, like, hey, we're technically the good guys here in this, and we would like not you, Jessica Drew, but Spider-Woman to be part of it. And she's like, I don't know. And Lieutenant Sabrina Morale is like, we got to drug her because she can't know where we're at. But the leader dude is like, hey, she knows that we know that she's Jessica Drew. So I'm going to trust her in knowing where we're at as a sign of good faith. And I thought that was a good move. So then she goes and like is spying on I always get really bad with these names, but it's the General Koiman. No, he's Karma's uncle or whatever. I cannot think of his name off the top of my head right now, and I'm not seeing it written anywhere easily for me to grab. But he is meeting with the Kingpin. She is Spider-Woman is flying in to see this, and this is the main thing that I wanted to take from this was the continuity thing here, okay? Because clearly I am doing these in release date order, and New Mutants graphic novel has not come out yet. New Mutants has not, I think it's barely been announced in like issues, like there hasn't been a print ad yet or anything that I have come across. And so he mentions to Kingpin, he's like, he asked Kingpin a favor. He's like, I have a niece, Shan Koiman, presently residing at Professor Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters in New York. Asterisk. And then the editorial box says, see the New Mutants graphic novel on sale in August. It's June. It's June 22nd. So New Mutants graphic novel does not come out. Currently in continuity, like I think Xavier might have just pulled out of the Brood thing that we don't know is the Brood thing yet. My point is that this, if this was done today, this would piss me off. So I need to call it out even when it's done in 1982, because I think it's frustrating that Shan has been brought up, even though technically, wait, where are we at in Marvel Team Up? Because she was introduced in okay. Maybe I can't be upset. Hang on. Yeah, Shan was initially introduced in... Okay, so Shan, all right, maybe I can't complain. I didn't necessarily know that at the end of Marvel, she has not been at the school. The school thing does not happen until Marvel, so I can still be annoyed by that. But she was introduced in Marvel Team Up number 100. So, at least we know who the character is. But, as far as her presently residing at Charles Xavier School, we didn't know that. And so that was dropped in this Spider-Woman issue. So that's interesting. And so he's like, would you acquire her and her younger brother and sister for me and deliver them here? I would be eternally in your debt. And Kingpin's like, a reasonable request. It will be arranged. But for me, I was like, oh, I don't want to know about the New Mutants. Like, I don't want to know that there's a team of New Mutants until I know that there's a team of New Mutants. It's a silly gripe, but that's, I like to immerse myself in these. That's when Spider-Woman smashes through. Turns out they got some mandroids, so those go after her. And basically, it is just a knockdown, drag-out fight between Spider-Woman and some mandroids as the Kingpin and the General try to get away. And so she goes after them, winds up eventually stumbling upon them, and then basically can't do really anything with the Kingpin because she didn't necessarily see him do anything bad. And so she basically just sort of threatens him. And that's kind of the end of that and where it all wraps up. And so I think for me, I don't really know if I'm going to be Spider-Woman was not my favorite series. I enjoyed Steve Leialoha's art. My introduction to the Spider-Man series was picking up the issues where Siren was initially introduced. Those were for years, those were the only Spider-Woman issues I had because I wanted the first appearance of Spider-Woman first appearance of Siren and that story. And then I was like, oh, I didn't realize Chris Claremont wrote, a good chunk of Spider-Woman. And I was like, well, he's my favorite writer. I'll pick that up. And still good. but definitely not a, like, if I'm going to read Spider-Woman, it's going to be this arc, and, you know, it's going to be the Claremont issues. I don't really think that I need to read anything else. So that's probably the end of Spider-Woman in Corner Box Classics. So there you have it. All right, so that is this week. I'm sure this has probably gone longer than anybody wants or hopes, but it is what it is. I like to ramble and chat about books. Did you pick up any of these? I know everybody was picking up Daredevil, and everybody loves Daredevil, but any of the other ones that were in there? Anybody else have good thoughts about Ka-Zar? Anybody else get annoyed by little continuity issues like I do? I'd love to hear it in the comments. And yeah, that does it for this week. End of June next week, which starts to throw most of the stuff off because we get books that would have come out in the first week of July at the end of June, and so on and so forth. But yeah, good stuff that week. And then we will have another new comic book bike ride up to the shop on Wednesday. Yeah, so hope everybody enjoyed watching this, and I hope you all have a wonderful Easter, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.